So here, if you go to the introduction, that is the clothes which we wear, clothes and like ropes. If we take, you can take ropes which we use for mountaineering. The ropes which we use for mountaineering, parachutes which we use for that is sky scraping, then that is the shirts which we wear, that is like you can take toothbrushes we take, then plastics, toys, etc. All these examples what we have highlighted, they are made up of, that is fibers. These are made up of fibers. So what do you exactly mean by fibers? So for example, if before going to the fibers, the clothes which we wear, the clothes which we are wearing, they are made up of the different fibers present in it. These fibers are filled with some chemicals, and fibers with chemicals will give you certain amount of synthetic material. Then ropes, if you take actually the ropes which we use in mountaineering, actually we take the wood pulp. And for this wood pulp we add a chemical substance. By adding a chemical substance for wood pulp, and we get a fiber. This fiber is water resistant, anti-deforming, anti-deformative, anti-rust, it is stiff, and it has more tensile strength. You might be seeing the adventurous mountaineering and skydiving. If you take, even during skydiving and parachuting also, the exploration of the skydiving which we use in the open spaces, toothbrushes, plastics, toys, etc. You can take as many number of examples as possible, but in all these cases we have a common substance which we call it as fibers. So frankly speaking, these fibers are actually what are the sources of fibers? If you go for sources, we have natural fibers, and we have synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers are actually man-made. Man-made fibers, and natural fibers are obtained. These are obtained from plants and animals. What examples you can take for natural fibers? You can take number of examples for natural fibers, that is cotton, silk, then you can take wool, cotton, silk and wool. Then you can take cellulose. Cellulose contains glucose units. Biologically, if you take natural fibers, you can even take, that is nucleoproteins, hemoglobin, which is present in the blood also. It is a natural fiber. It comes under natural fiber. When you go for synthetic fibers, these are man-made. So in the man-made synthetic fibers, the best source of the synthetic fibers are petrochemicals. You can obtain it from petrochemicals. Synthetic fibers can be obtained from petrochemicals, coal, that is wood pulp, etc. All these are the synthetic fibers. That means whether it is petrochemicals or coal or wood pulp, they are added with suitable chemical substance in it, and once the chemical substance is added to the petrochemicals or coal or wood pulp, then immediately it results in the formation of new substance called synthetic fibers. And these synthetic fibers have certain advantages as well as certain disadvantages. So when you go for synthetic fibers, once the synthetic fiber is obtained, so what are the best examples of obtained synthetic fibers? Obtained synthetic fibers from wood pulp or from coal. Synthetic fibers, you can take as many number of examples as possible. You can take nylon, terylene, you can take nylon, terylene is also called Dacron, you can take. Then acrylic plastics, plastic also, it is a part of synthetic fibers. Then thermosetting fibers, thermosetting plastics, thermosetting and thermoheating plastics. So there are many examples where we can come across one by one. So all this comes under a part of introduction for the synthetic fibers and the plastics. So look at this tabular form here, what I am trying to give, that is articles. We are trying to take the different articles which leads to the fiber formation. That is, if you take articles here, cotton, silk, rayon, nylon and wood. If you go for cotton, it's a natural fiber. Cotton is a natural fiber. Silk also, it's a natural fiber. Rayon is artificial fiber, and nylon also, it is artificial, and wood is again a natural fiber. So from this table, what information we can gather? The information what we can gather from this table is, actually, if you take a synthetic fiber, let me put it in this way, a synthetic fiber is also nothing but a plastic polymer. So when you say polymer, a polymer is nothing but polymer. When you say polymer, you split this word into two parts, that is poly means, that is many, and mer means, that is parts. So that means here what is happening, that means a polymer is made of basic unit called monomer. A polymer is called a basic unit called monomer, and monomer, if you take monomers add on each other to form a giant three-dimensional molecule. 3D means three-dimensional molecule, resulting in the formation of polymer. And the process we call it as, and the process is called polymerization. And the process we call it as polymerization. You can take number of examples for polymers. Polymer plastics, if we take polythene is a plastic polymer. You can take polyvinyl chloride is also a polymer. PVC we call it as, and also you can take, that is A, this is B, and you can take C, polyvinyl cyanide. Sometimes we can also call this as acreolin. Acreolin we call it as. So all this comes under the polymers. So apart from that, if you take the rayon, what is this rayon? This rayon is called artificial silk. This rayon, actually we call it as artificial silk. So how do you get rayon? If you go for rayon, I can just call it as rayon. If you're taking the rayon, it is artificial silk. This artificial silk is woven into individual fibers. Is woven into individual fibers. So for example, wood pulp, when given a chemical treatment, when added with a chemical substance, it gives rayon. Rayon, when treated with cotton, it gives bed sheets. It can give you bed sheets. And rayon, when treated with the wool, it can give the carpets. So that means the synthetic fibers in the form of artificial silk can be obtained in different formats: bed sheets, carpets, parachutes, then many other cases. So next, let us go to another synthetic fiber, that is second category, that is go for nylon. Nylon is another synthetic man-made fiber. It is prepared from coal, air and water. These are the raw materials which we use for preparing nylon. This nylon, actually, if you take nylon, this nylon is synthetic because it is prepared from this synthetic man-made fiber is prepared from chemical substances like adipic acid and hexamethylene diamine are the two chemical substances which are used in the preparation of nylon. Here we get nylon. If you go for nylon, if you are going for nylon has some characteristic features. It has some characteristic features. So here, if you take the nylon here, that is, if you are going to the different properties of nylon. What are the commercial properties of nylon? These are the important properties. If you go to the properties of nylon, what we are noticing here is all nylon fibers are very strong. They have very strong tendency. They have elastic nature. That means they are flexible. They can contract and they can expand. Then they are lighter. All nylon fibers are very lighter. They have shining nature. These nylon fibers, they have the shining nature. Lustrous is nothing but shining nature. Then they are easy to wash. They are easy to wash because they have low water absorbing tendency. Very quickly you can find that the water can be repelled out from the surface of the fabrics. That is easy to wash. That's why they are used as umbrellas. They can be used as umbrellas, rain protecting umbrellas, raincoats, waterproof raincoats, etc. These nylons, they have stronger strength. They have stronger strength than wool and cotton. For example, one small experiment we are going to do. You take a stand, vertical stand like this on the pan. Just take a horizontal surface platform and you take one clamp. And for this clamp, you just release the thread, and here you place a weighing pan. This is called weighing pan. And here you can take cotton, wool. That is, you can take all the three in order. In the case 1A, you take nylon. In B you can take silk and you can take wool. Among these three substances, you find that suppose if you are taking 50 grams, here 500 grams here of weight, and here weighing pan, and here you can take up to 2 kg of any solid mass. Still you find that the thread, if the thread is nylon thread, the nylon thread will have more tensile strength and it's not going to break so easily. Though it has more elastic nature, you still find that the nylon threads are very strong, because these nylon fibers are the synthetic fibers which are obtained actually by chemical treatment. We take the chemical substances, we give the chemical treatment, two different chemicals are trying to combine with each other to give a new substance in the form of a polymer. That polymer will have the highest strength. Because of that, though it have elastic nature, it is not going to break. That means the elastic forces are not going to break so easily. It keeps all the monomeric micromolecules within the nylon substance intact, and it will give a lot of strength to that. That is why when you add more kg to the more amount of the mass on the weighing pan, but still you find that nylon threads are very stronger and they cannot break. So this is a small experiment to prove that the fibers, synthetic fibers, have more advantage over the natural fibers like silk and wool. So this is one important point which you have to keep it in your mind. And of course, if you take water absorbing tendency, because of its high tendency to repel the water, or it has low tendency of absorption of water, it is always used as a rainproof material. Then applications of nylon fabrics, applications of nylons as synthetic fibers in the form of fabrics. Nylons are used in socks. The socks whatever we wear, they are made up of inbuilt fibers in it, elastic fibers. The fibers can expand as well as contract depending upon the size of the foot. So that is made up of nylon fibers. Then you can take mountaineering ropes. These mountaineering ropes, they are very strong enough to hold a particular hard surface, and when they are just released to a very long height, the ropes can withstand a pressure of 50 to 100 kg. That is the main reason we can use in the adventurous games like mountaineering and so on. Then you can also use the nylon fibers or nylon threads in the form of tents and also seat belts. Yes, they give a firm grip for the driver who sits in the car, and tents, it gives a lot of strength on the foot of the ground where it can withstand the heavy weight. You can take the window curtains. Window curtains, it protects the harmful radiation from the sun. So depending upon the atmospheric changes, we can use the window curtains which are made up of nylon. And of course parachutes also, they are lighter, so they have the higher buoyancy. When we try to float, when we try to fly in the air, we try to use the parachutes. It maintains the common buoyancy for the person who is trying to explore. Then sleeping pillows or sleeping bags also, they are made up of nylon. So these are all the wide applications or wide usages of nylon in our various daily lives. So these are the daily life activities, daily life usages of nylon, daily life usages of nylon. So here the next part of the discussion is, that is polyester and acrylic fibers. Polyester and acrylic fibers, or you can just call them as fibers or plastics. We can call them as, or plastics we can call them. So here let us have a discussion about the polyester. Usually randomly we call it as polyester, or sometimes we call it as, if you split specifically, if you try to pronounce this term, we call it as polyester. So when you say polyester, what do you mean by this? Poly means many ester molecules. These ester molecules generally have a fruity smell, and in the language of chemistry, when you speak about ester is a chemical group which contains alcohol plus acid in it. Alcohol and acid, when they mix with each other, they mix with each other and they give fruity smell. They give a fruity smell. Once you get this fruity smell, it is confirmed that it is ester. So this ester, when more and more number of such ester molecules combine, these two are chemical substances. Alcohols and acids are These are the chemical substances. Don't forget that these are chemical, because we are preparing the synthetic fibers. These are the chemical substances. Chemical substances. So alcohols and acids, when they interact with each other, they mix, they give fruity smell, and that gives rise to ester group. When more and more number of ester molecules they combine with each other, they add against each other to participate in the polymerization. They participate in the polymerization and they give a polymer. That polymer leads to the formation of polyester. A polyester, you can call it as a synthetic fiber or a synthetic fabric, or you can simply call it as synthetic plastic. So what is happening here is, like all polyesters, some of the most distinguishable features of this polyesters are, they are always anti-wrinkle. So you take in the daily life also, when we go for purchase of our wardrobes, we try to just see that majority of the clothes which we wear, they are anti-wrinkle, because anti-wrinkle is always an advantage when you of ironing the cloth. So these polyesters, they have the most distinguished advantage of anti-wrinkle nature. Then they are crisp in the sense the fibers are fixed in their positions. They do not get holded so easily, so they are firm in their positions and they do not change their texture. That is crisp, and they are easy to wash because they are insoluble in water. These polyesters, they have least water absorbing tendency. That's why they are easy to wash, because of their anti-wrinkle nature, crisp nature. It is also easy for us to wash them, because whatever the dirt is there, it just gets removed very fast. Then of course it is used as a dress material. Then these polyesters, one of the most popular polyesters available in the market are terylene or dacron. This terylene and dacron, both of them, they are popularly called as polyesters. They are called as polyesters, and these polyesters can be drawn into fibers. Once they are drawn into fibers, they are woven into the fine yarn in the form of globules or in the form of fine threads. They are woven into fine yarn, and with that yarn we can just go for preparing any other material in the form of socks or ties or whatever. Then this is a very famous term which we use in the form of polyester. Actually the word PET, I'm just writing over here, the word PET means, in the language of chemistry, when you say PET, we call it as polyethylene terephthalate. Terephthalate is the actual terminology which we use for PET. That means these are the ethylene and terephthalate are the two chemical substances which are used in this PET as a synthetic fiber or a synthetic plastic. It is used. So this we call it as PET is also one more form of the polyester, and this polyester PET, this PET in the form of polyester plastic, it is used in the form of manufacture of bottles, different PET utensils, films, then also sometimes wires. So all these, they have their unique characteristic feature. PET bottles are very popular in our daily usage. Then utensils, actually utensils are heat resistant. They do not get melted when we heat it to certain temperature, because they have another coating given to them called melamine coating. Any plastic which is given with melamine coating, they do not melt so easily, and they are anti-fire. These utensils, they are anti-fire. They have anti-fire coating in them. So that's why we can just use utensils, and films and wires also can be used. Then if you go for polyesters, these polyesters now they can be called as fabrics, and they are sold under different names, terminology. They are given different terminology. One we call it as polycotton. The cotton shirts are very famous. If you take polycotton, cotton shirts are very famous. Then it is made up of cotton and the polyester. Then polywool, it is made up of polyester plus wool. Then it is used in the woolen sweaters, winter sweaters, and anti-cold sweater. Polycotton, it has absorption capacity is more for water, and it releases the heat from the surface of the body. Then we have one more type which is attached to the polyester is acrylic plastic or Orlon, which they have the chemical substance present in it as vinyl cyanide monomers, and they are used actually in the preparation of blankets, shawls in the winter season. So these are all the wide applications of the polyesters and their different applications and their different ways of in what ways we are trying to use them in our daily life. So here If you go to the next part of the discussion, that is characteristics of synthetic fibers, where the synthetic fibers include nylon, terylene, PET, and also acrylics. If you take all the synthetic fibers, as we have already discussed earlier, they are highly elastic. They have the expansion and contraction tendency, and they have the easy tendency to dry fast. That is one more advantage, where you can notice maintains the permanent crease, and they do not get easily crumpled. That means they do not get easily holded, or they do not get easily soiled up. That is the meaning of crumpled. And the crease is nothing but keeping the fabric quality, the texture of the the fabric remains the same over the period of time. The quality of the fabrics will not change. That is called permanent crease. They have very strong resistance to the external creatures like microorganisms like insects and moths. And one of the disadvantages for the synthetic fibers is like they are highly inflammable, and they catches fire easily. Actually, there's a difference between a person wearing a cotton fabric cloth and the synthetic fiber cloth like nylon or whatever. So the person who is wearing nylon or something like terylene type of cloth or fabric, then once it's going to catch a fire, you find that this fabric has more affinity to the skin. It sticks to the skin, and during the burning, if this nylon, if it happens to sticks to the skin, it is very difficult for us to separate the nylon component from the surface of the skin, and the person may suffer severe injuries on the surface of the skin. And it is very disastrous to always see that if there is any fire mishap where a person wearing the nylon like of fabrics rather than the cotton fabrics, that we have to keep it in mind. And that's why that is one of the biggest disadvantage for the synthetic fabrics, particularly when it catches a fire. And the biggest disadvantages, all the synthetic fibers are non-biodegradable, and they are, once we use the word non-biodegradable, that means they are not eco-friendly. If they are not eco-friendly, that means they are causing an adverse impact on ecosystem. That means if these synthetic fibers, when they are just stored in a trash in the form of a trench under the surface of the soil, then it takes number of years to get degraded. But if you take any other naturally occurring fibers, they can be easily biodegradable, and you can see that within few days the natural fibers, they get sinked into the soil, and they can be converted into useful manure. But here in the case of non-biodegradable, that means synthetic fibers, they are non-biodegradable. They will take number of years, over the period of years they will take to biodegrade. That is why they are not eco-friendly, and they cause adverse impact on the ecosystem. That is what we have to keep it in mind. And if these synthetic fibers which are worn by those people who are sensitive, if they have certain sensitivity to their skins, then definitely if they are sensitive to their skin allergy or something like that, then it is prone to cause lot of skin allergies, and also they form unnecessary rashes, particularly for people who are suffering with some skin diseases. If they wear this synthetic fiber type of fabrics, then they suffer from some skin allergies, and also that may lead to the rashes. So that's why they are prone to skin allergies and rashes in particular. So these are all the disadvantages of synthetic fibers, overall disadvantages of the synthetic fibers. And if that is the case, then one point which we have to keep a note of the water absorbing tendency for natural and synthetic fibers. For example, wool is natural, cotton is natural, silk is natural, but nylon is artificial fiber, so that is synthetic fiber. So synthetic fibers have least absorbing tendency, and natural fibers, these are natural fibers. Natural fibers have high water absorption tendency, but nylon is a synthetic fiber, it has least absorption tendency. So in that way we have to please make a note of this, so which is a part of the general characteristics of the synthetic fibers. So the next part of the discussion here is plastics. If you go for plastics, these are synthetic These are synthetic fibers which are made of polymers. When you say polymers, polymers in turn are made up of monomers. More depending upon the kind of monomers which are present in the polymers, we can decide whether the plastics, what kind of classification we can give for plastics. Suppose if you take for example monomers, here I can take that is ethene. We have ethene and that is vinyl cyanide. Ethene and vinyl cyanide. These are the two monomers. Ethene molecular formula C2H4, vinyl cyanide C2H3 of Cn, where Cn is the cyanide, C2H3 is the vinyl group. So these are the two monomers. So here we can say that means here this is one case. Then suppose if the same polymer, if it has monomers like formaldehyde and phenol, and sometimes it has melamine. These are the two different types of monomers present. That means based on the types of monomers, here we have one type of monomer, here we have one type of monomer. Then these monomers, that means based on type of monomers and the heating effect, they can be classified into these plastics can be classified into. So therefore these plastics can be converted into, that is now plastics we can convert into two types. One is high HDP and LDP. HDP we call it as high density. HDP is high density polymer. In HDP, in high density polymer, you can find that the monomers in the form of fibers, they are in the linear pattern. They are in the linear chain pattern. If you go into the linear chain pattern, the diagram looks like this. If you think that these are all the monomers, the link goes like this, just a straight chain, that's it. This is called linear pattern, straight chain pattern. Straight chain pattern, high density polymer. Then in this high density polymer you can take straight chain pattern, you find the monomers, that is polythene. Here you can take polyethene. The plastic is called polythene. This is polyvinyl cyanide. All these are high density polymers. Low density polymers, if you're taking low density polymers, then that is LDP, low density polymers. Low density polymers, if you take these monomers in the form of fibers, they are cross-linked. They are in the form of cross-linked chain pattern. So what is the kind of diagram you can notice? The diagram which you can notice here is, you can have more number of interlinks like this. The monomer units are linked like this, more than one branch. This is a kind of link you find. This is called cross-linked pattern, cross-linked chain. And when you say cross-linked chain, you can use this formaldehyde with phenol, we call it as bakelite, and this is melamine. These are the best polymers in the form of low density polymers. So that means now the polymers in the form of plastics, we have resolved them into two components. One is high density polymers and low density polymers. If you take, particularly if you are taking the high density polymers, they can be molded into any shapes. These are this is high density polymers. You can take polythene bags, then plastic sticks, then plastic lighters, or something like that. High density polymer, low density polymers, you can take plastic chairs, plastic chairs you can take. Here you can take plastic bags, plastic carry bags, we can say, etc. So here the next part of the discussion, that is characteristics of plastics. If you take available, all the plastics, they are available in all shapes because they can be molded into, any shape of the object. They can be recycled and they can be reused, and they can be easily melted, and they can be rolled into sheets, and they can be made into wires. So this is the advantage of using the plastics. The monomers which are present in the polymer, they are easily expandable and they can be resizable, and they can be casted into any molds. They can be molded into any shape of the object. That's why we can say that they can be recycled, reused. Today in the market we know about the renewable plastics, the reusable plastics. In all the metro cities where there's a lot of population, you find that the plastics are always recycled, because when we use the plastics, when we go on recycle the plastic, that means we'll be saving our environment also, because these plastics are non-biodegradable. When they are dumped into the trash or in the form of a trash, and when they are dumped in a trench, then they will take hundreds of years to renew, to biodegrade. So they cause irreparable damage for the the soil texture, that is the quality of the soil, making it highly the unfit for any kind of the growth of plants and animals. That's why it is recycled, reused, and it is melted, and it is rolled into sheets and can be made into thin fine wires depending upon the daily need. Then if you take the plastics are actually two types. We have thermoplastics and thermosetting plastics. So what is the difference between thermoplastics and thermosetting plastics? Here if you take any plastic which can be easily bent, the plastics which are easily bent, or they are easily, they can be deformed, or they can easily change into any shapes. Okay, the easily bent plastics are called as thermoplastics. And these thermoplastics, the best example for thermoplastics are, that is PVC plastics. PVC means polyvinyl chloride, or polyvinyl chloride, or polyvinyl cyanide plastics are there. And polythene, this polythene is very famous. It is used as a polythene cover, or polythene bags, or polythene sheets, or whatever. Okay, they can be used, these polythenes or polyvinyl chlorides can be used as toys, combs, and they can also be used in the manufacture of plastic pipes, agricultural pipes also. They are used from the PVCs for agricultural purposes, or various daily household needs also. We try to manufacture the plastic pipes, molded ones. And what about the thermosetting plastics? Once they are molded into a particular shape of the object, they cannot be deformed or softened by heating. Then such plastics, we call it as thermosetting plastics. The best example of thermosetting plastics is bakelite and melamine. Particularly, as I told you, bakelite is used for electrical insulations. If you go for bakelite, it is used in electrical insulations. Electrical insulations in the sense, you can take, that is electric switches, if you take, then hanging of electrical wires to long distances. Also we use bakelite. And melamine is a plastic, thermosetting plastic, where it is used in fireproof dress material for, particularly for fire mishaps, during the fire mishaps. The people who deal with the fire mishaps, then they wear this fireproof dress material which is having a coating of melamine. Then this melamine, it is also used in manufacture of floor of tiles and also kitchenware. Then apart from this, we also expect the plastics to show the properties like they are lighter in their weight. Of course, if you take in terms of economy, they are lower in their price because of the easy availability. They have good strength. Because of these reasons, They are used in the manufacture of various spare parts of car, various parts of car, auxiliary parts of the car. Then they are used in aircrafts, then they are used in spacecrafts also. Then yes, of course, they are anti-corrosive because they are resistant to atmospheric oxidation. The plastics are not corroded at all because they are very strong to they don't have any affinity for the atmospheric oxygen or atmospheric gases present in the air. That's why it is anti-corrosive. It is cheaper than metals. The availability of metals is limited. That is why isolating metals is difficult. So instead of metals, the alternative source is plastic. Plastics are always cheaper and easy to use, and of course they are poor conductors of heat and electricity. You can see the electrical people handling the connections in the household connections. Whenever they want to operate a conducting wire, they just first test it through the screwdriver. The upper part of the screwdriver is fitted with the plastic, and that plastic will help the electrician to find out whether the current is passing through that particular area or not. Because if the current is passing, there is a blink in the screwdriver, but the upper part of the screwdriver is fitted with the plastic material, so there is remote chances of the electrician to get any kind of electric shock for him. So that is the advantage. So that is why we can say that it is a poor conductor of heat and electricity. So all these points will sum up in a nutshell to study the useful characteristics of plastics. So here, if you go to the large scale use of the plastics in particular, you can see that there are two major sectors where the plastics have a massive application in our daily life. One is healthcare industry and plastic cookware, and of course the last point which I have highlighted is not a part of plastic cookware, but I just added rationally. So if you go for healthcare industry in packing of tablets, yes, today if you take the tablets in the various forms, whether they are available in the form of a spherical powdered tablets, or if you take in the form of a solid mass tablet, or in the form of capsule, you find that the coated the chemical composition of the tablet is stored safely in plastic, because plastic cannot allow any air or any dust particles or any impurity to enter into the coated envelope of the plastic. So that's why they are used in packing of tablets. And but one important area which we have to notice here is nowadays biodegradable tablets are also coming. That is biodegradable tablets are also manufactured, which are very safe for us to consume. The chemical substance used in the biodegradable tablets are, that is PBHV. This is called PBHV tablets, we call them as. These PBHV tablets are readily soluble in water. The capsule automatically dissolves in water, it mixes with the different components, biological components in our body, and it has zero side effects. And nowadays it is used, it's very popular. PBHV tablets we call it as. And it is also used in stitches of wounds. The fine thread of the plastic, nylon thread or whatever, the fine thread of the plastic is also used in stitching the wounds of a person who is suffering from severe injury, or if there are any severe cuts and bleeds. The bleeding and cuts are arrested by taking the stitches, by using the stitches of wounds. Then the doctor uses the injection needle. The injection needle is actually protected before use. The syringe is actually protected to a plastic cover. In the plastic cover it is stored, that injection or the syringe needle. Then doctor's gloves, yes, whether the doctor during the operations, particularly during the dental operations or any major operation, they always protect themselves from the plastic gloves, and they also use the plastic masks also sometimes. And in the plastic cookware, cooking industry, then cooking of food, they are used in cooking of food. Nowadays the electric cookers are very famous, which are having the plastic material involved in it. Micro oven. In the micro oven, when you supply the heat to the food, it only heats the food without affecting the plastic part of the container. Teflon coating is very famous. This Teflon coating, it is used for the fine finishing on the surface of the cars. This Teflon is made up of polytetrafluoroethylene is the coating which is given on the metal surfaces, which will prevent the fine finishing of the metal surface of the cars and bikes, and this is because this polytetrafluoroethylene do not mixes with the oil and water, because Teflon doesn't have action for oil and water. That's why this Teflon coating is always an advantage for the metal surface for the car or the metal surface for the bike. And even in the non-stick pans also we try to use Teflon coating, because that's the advantage for the the food which we try to cook on its surface, and it is heat proof also. So taking all these advantages, Teflon coating has a lot of applications in our daily life. So here let us try to answer some questions. Exercise. It is if you take Y, saucepans, and that is electric boards and plugs, or electric boards and plugs, they are called thermosetting plastics. Setting plastics. It is because if you take saucepan, you take a saucepan has handle, it is made up of plastic. This plastic is a bad conductor of heat and electricity. It allows the cooking of food. It allows cooking of food by absorbing heat, but the heat is not transmitted to the handle. Heat is not transmitted to handle. So similarly here also, if you go for electric boards or plugs, if you take this is a non-conductors of electricity, bad conductors of electricity, so it is safe for us to consume. These are also bad conductors of electricity, so it is safe for us to consume, because when we on and off the plug, if we take on and off, if you take that this is a electric boards, and if you find this is the switch, something like this, if this is the switch, you can just on it, because this is all insulating material, insulating plastic, and this is switch. So even when the finger is coming in contact with the switch also, we need not get any electric shock. So next is first question. Second question, manufacture of synthetic fibers. Manufacture of synthetic fibers helps in conservation of forests. Helps in conservation of forests. Comment. Let us give a convincing comment. Actually, if you, because the restoration of the forest, the restoration of the forest depends on availability of natural fibers. So from natural fibers we can prepare different kind of the polymer products, but due to manufacture of synthetic fibers, due to the manufacture of synthetic fibers from chemicals we can protect, because by adding different chemicals we are trying to prepare synthetic fibers. These synthetic fibers, they just function like natural fibers in the form of bioplastics. Synthetic plastics also, they just work like bioplastics. So that's why whatever synthetic fibers we are preparing them from chemical compounds. So therefore we are trying to maintain the restoration of the forest. That means forest reserves are protected. Forest reserves are protected. This is one particular point which you have to keep it in mind.